When a loss happens, you don't just lose a person, a relationship, a dream, your health, whatever the thing is that you lost. Loss can also rob you of your sense of meaning. It is extremely disorienting, and especially if you had a firmly rooted sense of meaning or purpose in life before loss, it can be truly life-altering, like worldview rearranging. For many people, the answer to the question, what is your why, isn't just a fun fact about them. It is literally what gets them up in the morning. So when loss takes your reason for being, it can feel like a very real identity crisis on top of a major loss. Hi there, grief growers. I am so honored to be with you today, as always. If you've been growing alongside me in my work for a while, welcome back. And if you are new to me and my work, hello. My name is Shelby Forsythia. I am a grief coach, a 3-time author, and the founder of Life After Loss Academy, which is an online support community where I have helped dozens of grieving people stop feeling lost, stuck, broken, and alone, and start building lives that they truly love from the lives that loss forced them to live. This includes, of course, not only death-related losses, but also losses like divorce and breakup, major diagnosis, and any other loss that changes your life. Here on Grief Grower, we believe that grief is not something we get over. It is something that we grow with and alongside, and that by treating grief less like a problem to be solved and more like an invitation to live deeply, we create meaningful lives that are rich with the memories we carry, the struggles that we faced, and the precious awareness of what it means to be right here and right now. And speaking of meaning, everything about this episode is related to how to find meaning and purpose again after loss. I'm just going to jump right into it. Recently, a student in my online support group, Life After Loss Academy, wrote, this is truncated for the show, but essentially this. She says, I came to Life After Loss Academy in 2024, shortly after the death of my mom. She lived with me for 18 years, and I was her sole caregiver. Taking her into my care changed the course of my life, physically, emotionally, and financially. My personal life was put on hold as I balanced caregiving, working 2 jobs, and maintaining the home we shared. My mom was my daily companion. Caring for her gave my days purpose, particularly after retiring. Now, it feels strange and disorienting to be struggling with meaning and purpose when, for much of my life, I never did, and through my work, I helped so many others find theirs. I've experienced tons of losses, including my dad's death when I was 6, the suicide of a close friend and former partner, many invasive surgeries, and the endings of significant relationships and friendships I once considered cornerstones of my life. As a professional, I've supported many people through grief, yet I am struck by how different my mother's death feels. Despite journaling, reading, listening to grief podcasts, allowing myself to feel and release emotions, and communicating thoughtfully in hopes of bridging the gap and understanding with others, the loneliness and isolation remain. I'm struggling to regain a sense of purpose and meaning in my life. How, or maybe where, do I start looking for meaning again? Is it even possible after a loss like this? So I have to tell you, as a grief coach, I actually love hearing this question, because underneath the 6 words, how do I find meaning again, is always, always, always something very precious and genuinely important. It is a grieving person racked by loss asking, who am I? What am I here for? Why did this happen to me? What does this all mean for my life? And what am I supposed to do now? So if you have asked yourself any variation of these questions related to purpose or meaning, whether your loss happened literally last week or decades ago, what I want to cover on the show today is how loss changes your relationship with meaning, why purpose can be such a sticky subject in grief, and why no one, even the people in your life who you care about the most and who care about you the most, can make your meaning for you. So the first thing I want to get into is how loss shakes and changes your sense of meaning. The thing I want to cover is that, when a loss happens, you never lose just the one thing. I am known for saying grief never happens in a vacuum. You don't just lose a person, a relationship, a dream, your health, whatever the thing is that you lost. Loss can also rob you of your sense of meaning. And this overnight, instantaneous or gradual collapse of purpose can leave you feeling sort of adrift or unanchored in a world where everything used to feel solid. It is extremely disorienting. This is a word that this Life After Loss Academy student chose. And especially if you had a firmly rooted sense of meaning or purpose in life before loss, it can be truly life-altering, like worldview rearranging. For many people, the answer to the question, what is your why, isn't just a fun fact about them. It is literally what gets them up in the morning. So when loss takes your reason for being, it can feel like a very real identity crisis on top of a major loss. In my most recent book, Of Course I'm Here Right Now, 3 actually helpful things to say to someone grieving, I talk about the 4 types of loneliness that show up after loss. And one of them, the one most tied to meaning, is called spiritual loneliness. And this is the feeling of being abandoned by God or the universe or by whatever sense of order or meaning that you used to trust or have faith in. It is the why me flavor of loneliness, or the one that tells you you have been left to fend for yourself out here, or there is no higher order or explanation, or probably the most devastating to me after my mom died, no one's coming to save you. Spiritual loneliness, this sense of the world having no meaning, does not require you to have any sort of religion. You do not have to believe in God or an afterlife or fate in order to feel spiritually or purposely or meaningfully lonely. You just have to have lost your sense that life makes sense, that things happen for a greater purpose, that your days add up to something, that there is a why underneath the what of your life. For this Life After Loss Academy student who wrote to me, this shows up for her as a cruel irony. She spent decades of her work life giving other people a sense of purpose and meaning and helping them through grief, only to find herself unmoored and adrift the one time in her life that she needed that same gift for herself. And to be clear, this is not a failure on her part. This is simply the nature of loss. Grief, loss, do not care how much expertise or insight or practice or grief literacy that you have, they still have the power to take your sense of meaning and just knock it right out of your hands. And the thing that I wish people who haven't lived through grief but who are observing grievers knew, probably more than a lot of other things, is that meaning after loss rarely looks like it used to. Here's something that I teach inside Life After Loss Academy that I learned after my mom died in 2013 and through 10 years now of supporting people through grief. Your old versions of meaning and purpose are not coming back, at least not in their original form, not as you knew them. While this statement might feel like a slap in the face when you're grieving, it can also ring with a kind of weirdly comforting truth. You're like, yeah, actually that feels true. That hurts, but it feels true. Because think about it this way, you have experienced a loss, so your sense of meaning has experienced loss too. Framed a little more bluntly, and this is how I describe it in Life After Loss Academy, you've seen some shit, so your sense of meaning has seen some shit too. Meaning has been through something, just like you, and meaning that has been cranked through the ringer of life often comes out the other side of that experience looking different than it used to. Maybe meaning is more fragile or more quiet or less enormous or less clear. And for you, meaning might not present with the same confidence or certainty that it once had. It might feel like a question mark or a temporary stand-in or like a band-aid meaning than a definitive, I have my flag planted firmly in the ground sort of meaning. Your sense of meaning or purpose in the world may be shredded in tatters in the exact spot where it was torn apart by your loss, or meaning and purpose may have left the building of your life entirely. I want to give you some examples of what changes in meaning can often look like after a loss. Number 1 is intensity. You might cling to meaning drastically less or feel less attachment to meaning as a part of your identity or like what gets you up in the morning. Clarity might change. Number 2, you might struggle to articulate a clear sense of purpose or why, especially if you are asked to write it down or speak it aloud. I'm thinking like in a job interview, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I have no fucking idea. Number 3 is strength. Your relationship with meaning may be delicate or hanging on by a thread or totally non-existent. That can be a very fragile relationship now. And finally, number 4 is priority. You might see meaning or purpose as much less important to daily life as you used to. As an example, the Life After Loss Academy student who wrote this question at the beginning of the podcast held caregiving for her mom as a clear, daily, undeniable purpose of her life for 18 years. That kind of meaning is extraordinarily loud and extraordinarily clear. It wakes you up in the morning and it hands you a job or a mission or a thing to do. Losing that kind of meaning doesn't just leave you with an empty afternoon on your calendar, it leaves you with an empty architecture of your life, essentially the bones of a hollowed out house where a rich and lively mosaic of a home used to be. It is no wonder that rebuilding your relationship with meaning does not happen quickly after a loss. And no wonder it cannot look the same as it did before. It has been through the same loss that you have. You have seen some shit, so your sense of meaning has seen some shit too. If your sense of meaning feels smaller, quieter, more tentative than what you had in life before, just like this Life After Loss Academy student, that does not mean you are failing at finding your purpose. It might just mean that it's early in your loss experience to try to hunt for meaning again. Or it might mean that you know this inescapable aspect of grief, the meaning that you hold after loss is built differently than the meaning you held before loss. So that brings us to the question, how on earth, Shelby, do I start finding meaning again after loss? Inside Life After Loss Academy, one of the final modules, sections of lessons that I teach, is how to leave the door of your life open, metaphorically, to meaning, purpose, joy, and hope again. Similar to other visualizations or metaphors that I've used to categorize life with grief as a never-ending experiment. So for example, the involuntary scavenger hunt from my first book, Permission to Grieve, or the dressing room from my article about some of my favorite metaphors for grief. My visualization for meaning making that I teach in Life After Loss Academy is all about treating purpose and meaning as a trial-size sample or as an audition, instead of needing to commit to a meaning forever right away. I'm not going to reveal the exact metaphor in this podcast. I hope you will join us in Life After Loss Academy, but hopefully what I'm going to tell you next will get you started. It will get you to get what I mean. If you'd like to access the full lesson, you can join me for guided grief support every single week and on-demand lessons, including this one, inside Life After Loss Academy, and you can find a link to do that in the show notes. It is open year-round all the time because grief never rests. Okay, here's the essence of this tool that I teach. The best way that you can start to find meaning and purpose again after a loss is to use the words maybe and perhaps as you experiment with potential meanings after a loss. You are auditioning them. You are trying them on. This temporary and considering language, maybe, perhaps, makes the weight of these statements a little bit lighter, takes the pressure off, a little less set in stone, and they turn a heavy or a permanent sounding statement into something you're allowed to try on, take off, set back down. So for instance, I'm going to add maybe in front of a whole bunch of meanings. Maybe this means I'm still connected to him. Maybe this is a sign I should look for work in a different field. Perhaps this is teaching me something about life or death that I don't have words for yet. Maybe this disease was always a part of me, I just didn't know it. Perhaps we were always destined to break up. Maybe this doesn't mean anything at all, and that's allowed too. As you experiment with your own maybe and perhaps statements, a few questions can help you notice how each one actually sits with you. Does this statement feel true in your body, or does it feel forced? Does it bring you a sense of relief, or does it make you feel tense or dreadful? Would you want to hear someone else say this kind of meaning to you, or does it only work in your own voice? Is this a meaning you are choosing for yourself, or one that you've absorbed from someone else or from society at large? Are you open to this meaning changing later, or does it need to stay exactly like it is? And to be clear, there is no right or wrong answer to any of these questions. The point is not to land on a final meaning today as we are speaking together. It is simply to notice with curiosity instead of rice cooker pressure what is true for you right now in this season of your life with grief. Now, I'm sure you kind of picked up on this when I did the maybe and perhaps statements, but something I also make clear to grieving people inside Life After Loss Academy and beyond is that your sense of meaning can be good, but can also be bad or neutral. Most conversations about finding meaning after loss assume that meaning is automatically good, like a warm, comforting thing, a sign from someone who died, a silver lining, a sense of why you're here. Sometimes it is. A lot of times it is. But meaning, what we derive from loss, is not always good. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's neutral. And all three types of meaning are really normal when you're grieving. And all three deserve your attention. I'm going to give you some examples of meanings you might make after loss, sorted into good, bad, and neutral, based on how they ultimately make you feel and how they might impact your future actions, for the better, for the worse, and for the in-between. Each of them includes a maybe at the beginning, just so we're continuing the exercise, the experimentation, from what I just said before. So, for instance, a good or positive meaning might sound like, maybe this loss is teaching me how to be more present with the people I still have around me. Maybe I can still talk to her spirit, and we're still able to communicate in ways I can't fully explain. Maybe this loss is helping me develop more compassion, or stop working so much, or be more mindful about money, something beneficial to your life. Maybe that hard season happened so I could eventually meet insert person here, or join insert group, community, that positively changed your life. Maybe they died so they didn't have to live through that painful surgery, or that awful world event, or seeing other people in our family die. Maybe this loss is inviting me to think about my own death, so I don't leave others unprepared in the same way that I was. Maybe getting this inheritance means he would want me to follow my dreams and go back to school, or buy a house, or travel the world, something that positively impacts your life. Examples of bad or negative meanings might sound like, maybe this means I wasn't meant to have children, or get married, or start a business, or move to X location, or apply to that job. Maybe I'm the kind of person that bad things happen to. Maybe this means there's no such thing as God or an afterlife, and I'll never see him again. Maybe the rest of my life is nothing but suffering. Maybe this friend or family group or relationship was never meant to last. And a neutral meaning might sound something like, maybe this just means life is hard and complicated, and that's simply true. Maybe there isn't a bigger reason. This just happened, and now I get to decide what I do with it. Maybe meaning isn't about why it happened, but about what I build next. See how each of those kind of land in your own life or apply to you, and then notice how they resonate in your heart, mind, body, soul, spirit, wherever messaging or meaning tends to make a home for you. See how any of those resonates with you. And notice where in your life you can find already what meanings have you made that are positive, negative, or neutral. Have you made any meanings in any of those categories? Do you have more in some categories versus others? I would love to know and to hear from you, so do get in touch. Before we continue, I want to circle around and really kind of toss a dart in the bullseye of the very worst kind of meaning making. And this is something that I don't see a lot of Greek professionals talking about, so I want to make sure that I talk about it here. This is the type of meaning that believes I manifested my loss. And I might cry in this section, so bear with me. One especially painful version of bad or negative meaning deserves its own spotlight. Again, I'm throwing a dart at the bullseye because this is something that I hear constantly from grieving people, and it doesn't get addressed out loud in a lot of grief support spaces. And this is the belief that you manifested or somehow attracted your loss to you. If you have spent any time around something called the law of attraction teachings, manifestation culture, or the broader, you create your reality messaging that is everywhere in our society, you may have wondered, did I cause this loss or bring this pain upon myself? Did I think about this, their death, the end of this relationship, this diagnosis, having cancer, too much? Did some part of me manifest my person or my pet's death, my divorce breakup, my diagnosis? These beliefs, these doubts that creep into our brain, these meaning makings that are for the worst, do not come from nowhere. We live in a deeply individualist and bootstraps obsessed culture, one that loves to hand people all the credit for their successes and heap on all the blame for their suffering. It is the same societal belief system that endorses the story that someone gave themselves cancer through stress or cured it by changing their diet. That is all about individual actions. It is not about society or sometimes just there is a random order of the universe and bad things do happen to good people. This is also a society that believes that poverty is simply a failure of mindset and that wealth is purely the result of working hard. These beliefs of like you are entirely in control of your actions and how well you're doing all the time sort of forms a small, sneaky leap from you create your reality to you caused your loss. If there is any part of you that has ever believed that your fear or your worry or your negative thinking or your intrusive thoughts somehow attracted, magnetized a death, a breakup, a diagnosis, another major loss into your life, it makes sense to me, based on the society that we are all marinating in, that you would feel that. That belief is everywhere, and in our society, it is designed to feel true. What's that phrase? You attract what you focus on multiplies. There's all these different kinds of phrases. This belief, though, is not a reflection of your power over the universe or your own life path. What it is a reflection of how badly we as human beings want loss to make sense, and how quick our society, our culture is to assign blame to the individual instead of compassion, even and especially to the person who is suffering the loss. I will say this very simply. You did not think your loss into existence, and your grief did not cause it. I'm going to say that one more time. You did not think your loss into existence, and your grief did not cause it. Your negative thinking, your ruminating thoughts, your worries, your what-ifs, they did not cause it. So if this is you today, and I'm speaking directly to you through this microphone, I hope that you can release this particular awful, heavy meaning fully and without guilt, and kind of see it for all that it is through the layers of how our society operates and beyond. The next thing that I want to talk about, in another vein of giving you your power back as you grieve, no one can make meaning for you. If you've ever been on the receiving end of other people's meaning making, you already know that it is acutely uncomfortable. So for example, she's with the angels now, or everything happens for a reason, or X happened so Y could happen. He died for a greater purpose. God doesn't close one door without opening another. They're gone now, so you can finally travel, or get a tattoo, or sell the house, or go back to school, or have a social life. If she hadn't died, you never would have met insert person here. He would want you to be happy, or move on, or date again, or try for more kids, or insert dead loved one's hypothetical wishes here. These meaning-making statements, generated by others, are usually well-intentioned, but they're also someone else's meaning, dressed up and handed to you like it is a garment that it's supposed to fit. And oftentimes, absolutely not. It does not. You are more than allowed to reject meanings that aren't yours, even kind ones, even hopeful ones, even ones that other grieving people swear by. You do not have to adopt a meaning just because it comforted somebody else in their loss. And you don't have to defend your own meaning-making process to anyone who is uncomfortable with how long yours is taking. So here are a few short scripts that might help when someone tries to foist their meaning on top of you instead of simply letting you find your own. So you might say, that may be true for you, but I'm still deciding what this loss means for me. And you can insert loss here. It's okay that you believe that. I just need you to not ask the same of me. I'm not looking for a reason why right now. I'm just trying to get through today. Or, I appreciate you trying to help me make sense of this. I'm going to keep sitting with it a little while longer. Suffice it to say, meaning making is not a group project. It is yours to build at your own pace, in your own words, and most importantly, on your own timeline. Before we go, I want to weave in some wisdom from two grief professionals that I love and whose work I admire. This is Alex Mamediarov and David Kessler, and they get a lot of things right about meaning. So if you feel you are like the only griever in the world who is wrestling with meaning after loss, let me assure you, you are not. You will not be the last either. I'm going to start with therapist and author Alex Mamediarov. She joined me on a previous episode of Grief Growers. You can go back and find that. And we talked a lot about why grief waves keep showing up long after a loss. And she opens her book, Growing Through Grief. Let me find it. Hang on. For people watching on YouTube, it's got a yellow cover. Yellow is my favorite color, so I'm showing it to you here. She opens her book with a story about what on earth does loss mean. She says, creating purpose after loss answers the question, what am I going to do now? This is my favorite line. The loss doesn't serve a purpose. We do. When my mother was dying, my sister asked her, "How am I going to do this? How am I going to live without you?" She was only 25 years old and preparing to be Alex's, legal guardian. My mother told her that I would give her purpose. My mother wasn't telling my sister that becoming my guardian was the reason she was dying, that it was some grand lesson concocted by her illness. Caring for me was simply what my sister was going to do with this loss. Once again, loss doesn't serve a purpose. We do. And I love this distinction so much because it separates two things that people often accidentally fuse together. One, the reason a loss happened, and two, the purpose we choose to build afterward. Your particular loss doesn't need to have a reason for you to build meaning from it. In other words, once again, your loss doesn't have to serve a purpose. You get to. You get to decide what that purpose is. If you would like to go even deeper into why grief waves resurface even years and years into meaning making and grieving, you can read or listen to my conversation with Alex at Grief Grower. You can find it back in the archives. Just look for Alex Mamadiarov, or you can find it by searching Shelby Forsythia Alex on Google, and you will find the blog that I wrote based on that episode. I will also point you toward my friend and fellow grief educator David Kessler's book, Finding Meaning, The Sixth Stage of Grief. I have it somewhere in my house, just not near my desk, so I can't show you the cover. But David's work has shaped grief education for years, and his central idea of this book, that meaning can become a genuine healing sixth stage of grief, alongside the traditional 5 stages that he studied with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, is worth exploring if you are itchy for more language and structure on how to find purpose after loss. It is a resource that I very much recommend if the subject of your grief studies right now is finding purpose and meaning. A wonderful book for that. One more time, Finding Meaning, The Sixth Stage of Grief. The thing I want to leave you with today is that meaning is a sticky and evolving and lifelong project. At the end of the day, meaning after loss is not something that you find once, like, oh, you discovered it out in the woods and then you have it and now you've checked it off the list of life with grief. Meaning making is folded into some of the biggest and oldest, most unanswerable questions that human beings carry. Questions about purpose or why, and about what being alive is even for. Questions like this do not resolve in a week or a year or sometimes ever. And that is not a failing of your grief process or your inability to look on the bright side. That is just what these existential questions are like, particularly for those of us who have faced one or more significant, life-changing losses. Living with the questions of grief and the uncertainties in the long term is literally exactly what I teach in the last piece of my 5-step grief method. The section in Life After Loss Academy is called Foster, and it is about fostering a lifelong relationship with grief instead of trying to figure out how to race towards a finish line of I'm done grieving that doesn't ever exist to begin with. This part of the course is where meaning and purpose get to stay unfinished and flexible and open to revision, because you keep living and life keeps handing you new losses, new experiences, and new information. The on-demand video lessons that are inside the Foster module that I pre-recorded for you do not insist that you land on one set meaning and defend it with your life forever. Instead, all of the videos, the journaling prompts, the exercises show you how to keep the door propped open, to experiment, to sample, to change your mind, to let your sense of purpose evolve as many times as it needs to over the course of your life alongside grief. Because healing is never about getting over it, as we say in the intro to Grief Grower. It is about growing alongside it. What I have to tell you is that meaning is literally what you make it. So to the student who wrote to me in Life After Loss Academy, and to you, every other griever asking, is it even possible to feel purpose again after a loss like this? Yes, it is possible, but it will not arrive on a deadline. No one can hand it to you, and it will definitely not look or feel like it used to. You do not have to find meaning inside of your grief today. You also do not have to find it alone. Inside that Foster section of Life After Loss Academy, we sit with and work through life and grief's toughest questions surrounding meaning and purpose and spiritual loneliness, and what it looks like to foster a lifelong relationship with grief together. I have even created an entire video lesson called What If I Have Lost My Sense of Purpose and Meaning? I call them What If workshops, and there's a whole bunch of them in the course. You can watch these on demand, and after you watch them and have thoughts about them and want to process them with other people, you will be surrounded by a community of people who can relate to what you're carrying, grievers who get it, and you get weekly grief support and coaching with me. You can find the link to join Life After Loss Academy in the show notes for this episode. And if you're not sure if joining this community is the right fit for you right now in this season of your grief, you can watch my free Grow Through Grief workshop to get a taste of everything that you will learn inside the course and get an overview of the grief method, GRIEF, ground, release, integrate, establish, and finally foster, that one on the end. You can see the whole grief method laid out plus everything you'll get in the course, and regardless of whether you join or not, you will come away with 3 easy, compassionate tools to start growing through grief today. Thank you so much for joining me on Grief Grower, whatever that means to you. I am wishing you so much grace and love as you rebuild purpose again in the wake of whatever loss you are facing. That's all for this episode of Grief Grower. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're looking for grief support beyond this show, you can find free workshops, blog articles, and my new book, Of Course I'm Here Right Now, 3 actually helpful things to say to someone grieving, at shelbyforsythia.com/links. And if you'd like to get support from me for your unique loss experience, you can join us anytime inside Life After Loss Academy, my online course and community. As a student, I will walk you through my 5-step grief framework for rebuilding after loss, and you can get live coaching from me every week to answer your questions. Replays are always available if you can't attend live. It's just $33 a month to join, or $22 a month if you're a marginalized or financially stressed griever. If this podcast felt validating, comforting, educational, or otherwise helpful to you, please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And be sure to share Grief Grower with a friend, because you never know what someone you love is going through. Grief Grower is hosted by me, Shelby Forsythia, and the theme music is composed by Addie Goldstein. Until next time, Grief Growers, I see you. I am so proud of you and the work that you're doing in the world, and I love you. Because even through grief, we are growing.